That's right. I'm joined by Mr. Horondoho, former debt director at the Treasury. Then far right, we have the awesome Ken Gishinga from Mentoria Economics. Gentlemen, welcome to Business Today.
Thank you.
How's your week been so far?
So far, so good. It's been a sobering week, but finally we are in a place where we need to take some things a lot more seriously. So here's to pray for our nation to stick together.
Yes, definitely. Ken, how about you?
It's been a complicated week. We had Black Monday, oil prices collapsing, all sorts of things happening in OPEC, then the first corona case here in Kenya.
Yeah.
It's been a complicated week, and we really hope that the authorities can step up. Yeah.
Definitely. Quite a concern right there. Let us put a week into perspective, the corona issue, okay? We have our first case in Kenya, but let's go to the wood, okay? Started in China.
Yes.
The effect on China, because China is a big global player when it comes to consuming and also supplying. And we've seen a movement from China moving to different places, the United States. Now we are in Africa. Just help us recap, starting with you, Mr. Ndoho, the impact of this virus, starting with the Chinese economy. How has it been?
It's been incredibly powerful because, for one thing, the fact that they've had to respond so quickly, it speaks a lot to an economy that has had 50 years of preparation. So when you look at how much the Chinese government has invested in responding to this, it says a lot for just being an economy that is really mature, and it has a wherewithal to produce and to respond to an emergency like this. There are some lessons to be learned, key among which is the fact that the discipline has been able to apply to its industrial development. It's really been a very good way of showing how we can translate that discipline to respond to an emergency like this. I think we can learn a lot from that, because the way it's contained this virus, it's been phenomenal, really phenomenal.
Definitely. So, Ken, it's moved from China, okay? Now it's coming to Europe. It's coming, to the United States of America. We're seeing total lockdowns in a country like Italy. Quite a concern. The impact now is even worse, the ramification. Help us recap that to outside China as it spreads to these other parts. How's been the impact?
Well, let me first start by disagreeing a bit with Wohoro, because the first case it's turning out was in around November 17th.
That was
and
last year.
Last year in 2019. When China started publicly talking about it was in late December, and that must have come through a lot of pressure. So in as much as we want to point that narrative that they have managed it well, there was a level of secrecy. I think they felt they could have tried to contain it. Maybe now they have tried to contain it, but it's already gone to Italy, it's gone to the United States, it's gone to South Korea, to Iran, and as of today, to Kenya. Obviously, we can't create a sense of panic, because already we are seeing panic happening. My take is let's follow the precautions, which is wash your hands, avoid touching your face, do some social distancing, because there's an economic impact when people stop going to restaurants, when people stop going using public transport. These things can cripple an economy, especially an economy that has been quite weak as Kenya. So I think in as much as the World Health Organization called it a pandemic on Wednesday, because right now it's at 135,000 people, it's really important the authorities really talk about it, that it's a flu, and like any other flu, it can be cured. It has a 1% mortality rate, fatality rate. So it's something that can be managed and something that can move on. Otherwise, if we end up creating a lot more panic, then we end up hurting the economy far much more.
Definitely. And Mr. Ndoho, towards Ken's point, in terms of, the level of secrecy, as he puts it, we even saw with our very own KQ, somebody had to record a video and say, hey, there's a plane that has landed here, and I don't feel okay about it. And, the person was given, compulsory leave, whatnot. Is the government, are governments trying to shield people from panicking, or should there be an open, communication to the world in regards to such issues?
Look, I take my colleague's point. I think he's right. The way it started, the level of secrecy, I think it's an instinct of government to hold back more than to give. And so it's true, there's a very big lesson to be learned in the fact that if you had been open at the beginning, then maybe things would have been different. And maybe the big takeaway from that is, now that it's here, the policy has to be free knowledge. Tell us the master plan. We know there's a master plan in government. There's a master plan around response. There's a master plan around how you ensure the supply chain in the country is working, logistics and what have you. The more information you give, the better, because it means that we are not speculating. Now we have, of course, a culture of serious rumor mongering. So the extent to which, and I'm glad to see my good friend Gitai started by basically telling us what the next steps are. But I think we need a lot more of that. It's not enough to send an occasional text message. Tell us exactly what's happening. Give us an idea of how it's moving, tracking. What are the measures you've taken? What are the measures we should be doing? If there are, for example, places that we should be reporting to, if, for example, a cluster is found, how do you go about doing that safely? Yes. So the more information, I think, the better. And it goes against the instinct of most governments to release as much information.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So now, let's take a look a little bit at the coverage of this particular issue. Because Ken, if you're on any social media platform, of course, picking a sample from social media sometimes can be misleading. But there was a lot of questions in regards to Africa. For once, people are saying a global epidemic and it's missing this continent, of which there's a lot of expectation, a lot of problems and whatnot. People asking, why is it not rampant in Africa? A lot of questions in that regard. From your perspective as a Kenyan, seeing, media, international media houses, asking a lot of questions. Why are Africans not getting this and that? How did you feel?
I mean, a lot of people took it positively, that it's not yet hit the continent as hard as it's hit other parts. But when you really think about it critically, it shows Africa is not as integrated in the global economy as we would like to imagine. If you remember during the financial crisis of 2007, 2008, the subprime crisis, very little of it hit Africa. It was South Africa maybe alone. So it still shows us a decade on that still, because all these things are a fact of mobility of people. So it really shows Africa, it's a huge continent, but it's not really, really integrated with the global economy. And this could be some of the benefits of not being a global part of that system, but also it comes with major disadvantages when you're not fully connected. So I think it cuts both ways. It's a commentary of where Africa is in the global economy. But I think moving forward, it should be us thinking, how much of us, these things can we do it internally? Because a lot of the small traders at Nyamakema, now they're not able to get goods to sell because the imports are not coming from China. So what's the new thinking about things that can be manufactured locally or in other parts of the world? I think for far too long, Kenya has been so beholden to China that people can't even think of any other sort of destination of products out of the box. I think that's also a big theme that we have to think about critically.
Definitely. And Mr. Ndoho there, some people are saying if those people are not, those companies that are not China dependent, maybe they have created an ecosystem within the country where, their manufacturing or their production revolves around here, they're able to capitalize more from this issue because basically the reliance on China, it's been cut across. Do you think there are businesses that can take advantage of this time?
Oh, absolutely. It's a perfect question. In fact, to my colleague's question about diversifying our sourcing base, the issue of import substitution is probably a very good conversation to start having now. The fact that for far too long we've depended on importation. So the question I would ask actually is it's actually an opportunity, even in situations like this, actually a good opportunity. How many industries can take advantage of it? I think you're yet to see. I would put it as part of what I would recommend as some sort of fiscal stimulus for the economy, the government will need to implement. We'll be really asking those questions. To what extent can some of these productions, for example, health masks, face masks, all those consumables. You can imagine someone, I'm sure there are a number of businessmen out there right now making huge plans of how they can make those products. But I can guarantee you 99% of them are thinking of how to import them from China. Maybe one of the things we should be doing as a government is asking who one or two local companies, can we support as government to produce it locally and make that now the beginning of, in fact, as part of our industrialization policy, because it has shown up a weakness in Kenya, and I would actually say even for Africa, even the question of spread of this virus. To me, it's also a question of measurements. We've not had a sophisticated system.
That's a good point.
So it may just come out that this thing has been here a lot longer. It's just we've not had very strong monitoring systems, or we've not, we've not had the sophistication of some of these other economies. So I think the jury is still out whether Africa was actually saved, or it was just we didn't have the wherewithal to catch it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So every person is thinking about solutions. Yeah.
Yes.
You can't treat this.
Yes.
You just have to manage it at the end of the day. We have one case in the country. Of course, people are raising a lot of questions. If this person was here this particular date, met this person, travel, what are the probabilities of here and there? And some people can refer to that as rumor mongering, but at the end of the day, we have to be cautious. So keep it clean. But let's speak about, solutions. We are talking about from a bigger perspective, the fiscal and monetary solutions. Yeah. So Ken, we want to start with this monetary issue from a macroeconomic approach, handling such a crisis. What should be done?
Well, the textbook theory is that the central bank needs to come in very powerfully. It needs to come and give assurance that it will maintain liquidity in the market. And that's what we are seeing from the Federal Reserve, the Bank of England, the Bank of Japan. That is the kind of leadership you need. When I went to the central bank website Twitter page today, I saw them advertising internships, a countdown to internships. And I'm like, I think they need to be part of the solution. Because when it's the Kenya Tourism Board providing funding, tourism is only 10% of the economy. You need to have the whole central bank saying that our businesses are going to suffer, but we're able to provide lines of liquidity, lines of credit into the economy. So this is a time the central bank needs to be really at the forefront, alongside with the Treasury, to provide both fiscal and monetary policy in terms of slashing interest rates on the banking side, and also the government being able to put in those stimulus funds that we've seen the Kenya Tourism Board coming through. Anything less than that means that businesses will start collapsing. On the other side is the insurance houses.
Yes.
The word pandemic, when the word pandemic is invoked, insurance houses are not compelled to pay any sort of like claims. But insurance houses have to stand with businesses. Yes, technically, if that word is imposed, they don't have to, but they also can't allow businesses to collapse. So it becomes more of an art and a science at the same time. That has to be the thinking, because anything less than that will mean businesses will start to crumble.
Yes.
I think what also Ken is making and it's a very powerful point, is we had a point where we've had a double whammy. We have an economy that's been pretty much free fall. But now we've had this crisis imposed over that. So superimposing one crisis over another means a response has to be disproportionate. It cannot be proportionate. So just as you were saying that the central bank should be thinking about liquidity, it's a question of information. If you were to ask me, if this thing persists for another week or so, or a couple of weeks, we should be talking about a massive economic fiscal stimulus, maybe the biggest in Kenya's history, just to make sure that actually, because you're not just be solving the negative impacts of this crisis, but you're trying to also overcome the crisis it found, which was one of a very subdued economy. And so, and in this conversation, if you can see the plans, if you can see, again, more information is better than less, how that's going to be done, then it would give confidence to the business sector. It will also give confidence to consumers. We keep talking about aggregate demand. So you have to make it such that average Kenyan feels, he will find money. If he wants to look for a quick loan, he won't find loan sharks there waiting to, So in a sense, that intervention means that also the government is in there to make sure that this rent-seeking behavior is modified. In fact, it's minimized. Sorry.
So you've just touched on some fiscal, rejuvenation that should be done in the sector if this is to persist. We are seeing it's affecting work big time in major cases, major hotspots. People in China, majority of them are not working. Companies that were reliant, the Apples, you're saying their stocks go down. Right. In a Kenyan context and in a Kenyan economy, briefly as we close up, how should we handle this if it is to persist, the working culture? Because we need to earn the wages to sustain living. Is there a part that we can play around this?
Well, we are not as wealthy as the West, where, for example, Italy has set aside 26 billion as a first tranche of a response. 26 billion euros, it's not like small money. They don't have that, but there are instruments in government can use. For example, you can have like an emergency treasury bond to raise a certain amount. I would venture to say 200-300 billion. What do you do with that? You take that money, you put it into a commercial support sinking fund, and it becomes a source for easier liquidity for business, for example. It could be made available to banks, but only on condition that they can't charge anything above a particular interest rate, not an interest rate cap, separately. But it's a sort of a fund that is available to especially medium and small scale businesses, more than the large ones. So there's a place they can go to. And we've got fintech now, so it needn't be manual. You shouldn't need to have to go to it. And measures like that will help, because to tell employers, it's okay, the government has your back, so keep your employees. Even though they may not be as, you cannot always afford them, we can help you keep the economy turning over. Because the most critical thing right now is to contain the crisis, but also to keep people working. You really must keep the people working.
Yes, definitely can. As we come to the end, I saw one of my friends who's a huge, supporter of digital matters. They're saying, maybe this is a wake-up call into the future of work in general. And they're saying now companies have to think of a way where people can work. Like right now, we're being encouraged to self-quarantine. You have to be very careful. So companies, do you think this crisis will alter the mentality, our corporate mentality as we stand right now in Kenya?
Absolutely no. And it's unfortunate we had to wait for a crisis to think about it, because if you think about the World Economic Forum last year, it was about the fourth industrial revolution and the future of work and leveraging digital tools. If you think about the Kenya's economy, it's a very service-centered economy. Things that can be done on the internet, things that can be done via technology. But when you look at how we really act in the economy, we act like as if it's the Victorian age, where everybody comes at 7 in the morning and works and sweats till 5. But that's not really the case. A lot of people are doing things that can easily be transacted on WhatsApp, on the internet and such things. So for me, it's a wake-up call. We do have the tools, so why don't we start using these tools? Part of the reason we have so much traffic in Kenya is because we are sort of like still playing in that Victorian age of type of economics, which is not the case. So absolutely, I think these are going to be part of the positive things that might come out of this negative story.
Yeah, that's pretty detailed. Gentlemen, of course, in the spirit of changing from the Victorian age of thinking, we have to put this particular discussion. Hopefully in the future people will be, we'll be having weekend perspective, you from your home, you from your place, But I wish you guys a very blessed weekend. Keep sanitizing yourself, keep safe, all right? Usiogope kuingia kwa mat, tutembee nyumbani. You have to be careful. But gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, all right? So at this particular moment, we have to put a full stop to the show today. Thank you very much for watching Business Today. I'm Nokip Kimboy. Have yourself